So for part 2 in our examination of the Mongols, as you can see on the screen, we begin with why do they matter? And we are looking at government reasons why they matter, so the political as well as the cultural. Now the Mongols promoted international commerce even though they didn't really produce much themselves. Their primary goal is taxation. All right, they want to tax the trade and become wealthy off of it. Every single successful civilization known to man uses this method. How do you truly flourish and become wealthy? You serve as middlemen. Trade, taxation. You know, they brought a new phase of history to the Silk Roads and kind of connected Eurasia closer than ever before. There were actually so many merchants who traveled along these roads that guidebooks were published to provide advice about how to successfully make this trip or make these journeys. So remember, we're talking camel caravans, dangerous terrain, caravanserai serving as roadside inns. The Mongols are now protecting them. That's why this is often referred to as the Pax Mongolica, or the Mongolian Peace. Now the empire was so large that it was divided into 4 separate khanates. The khanates are the different administrations of the government. So we basically have Persia, Russia, Central Asia, and China, and we'll see them visually momentarily. But in each region, a Mongol governor would be in charge of collecting taxes, and each governor was free to try whatever worked in terms of levying taxes. There was a lot of leeway that they had. Since the Mongols often left local systems of government and customs in place, this is where home rule comes in. They would often leave them in place, and because they did this, they didn't need to leave a large occupation force behind, leaving them free to just move on, conquer the next territory. Now, when they conquered a people, they carefully ensured that skilled craftsmen would survive, and they transferred these craftsmen, engineers, for example. They'd be transferred to the parts of the empire where they were most needed. The capital of Karakorum in the Mongol homeland had places of worship for most faiths and was a cosmopolitan city. We are going to see it rise to the level of a Kashgar or a Samarkand, which are 2 places along the Silk Roads. Various cultural interactions occurred and were encouraged. And Europeans actually gained the most from it because they had been cut off from the world previously, or the greater world, we might say, and were not only exposed to new ideas, but they hadn't directly suffered the wrath of the Mongols. The Mongols had decimated the Poles, Germans, and Hungarians in the 1240s. And remember, that vanguard reached Vienna, but they turned back to vote for a new leader. They never returned that far west, so a lot of structures within Europe were still in place. Now this concept of the postal relay system, as we see a rider here, this is one of their most lasting contributions, and besides their military prowess, this is what they're most remembered for. This system began to take shape during the reign of Ögedei, the 3rd oldest son of Genghis Khan and his heir. Now the Mongols set up fixed routes with regular stops about every 30 miles. So basically the distance from Green Bay to Neenah, Wisconsin, that's really the distance we're talking about here. Official messengers carried a silver or bronze medallion that signified their status. They were able to eat and claim a fresh horse. These riders could cover about 60 miles per day, so the entire empire was connected. This system is also used to provide foreign dignitaries with food, shelter, and safe passage. So we see the connection of the Silk Roads are flourishing, the postal relay system is improving, it's increasing. It's really, they're working in concert with one another. Now later in the unit, we are going to get to the concept of environmental consequences of interactions. The Black Plague, the bubonic plague, the Black Death, however you want to name it, does spread along these routes. And a decline in population resulting from the plague will mean a decline in trade and wealth. The empire, by all accounts, is somewhat short-lived. It eventually breaks up, and even China is lost by the late 1300s. Now, on that note, this empire, we see the extent of it, the 4 khanates. We have the Khanate of the Great Khan, so Mongolia, here's their main city, Karakorum, as well as China. We have the Chagatai Khanate, which is Central Asia, so there's where Samarkand and Kashgar, those 2 important Silk Road cities, are located. We have the Ilkhanate, so Persia. Like today, Kabul is in Afghanistan, Baghdad is in Iraq, and then you have the Khanate of the Golden Horde, Russia. Interesting to note that Kiev and Moscow are just outside of it, but they're going to be paying tribute to it. And this entire empire was a little under 5 million square miles. 5 million square miles. In second place in world history when you have a land-based contiguous empire was Alexander the Great. His empire was a little over 2 million. 2 million. The Mongols more than doubled it. So culturally, they definitely had some effects, but overall, this land-based empire is one of the most lasting effects of the Mongols.